welcome to The Extra Mile. I'm Linda BOUDREAUX. Our guest today is Mike Davis. Mike is the president of CONRAD Rice Mill in New Iberia, and they make CONRICO products, so we're going to find out all about them today. Mike, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate your having us.
Oh, it's so good for you to come. Well, you know, we all are familiar with CONRICO rice. I mean, it's on all of our grocery shelves.
Sure glad to hear that.
We kind of got to be. You know, we do live here, but you really don't just sell to Lafayette stores, do you?
No. We obviously started here when the mill cranked up, and when I purchased the mill in 1975, it was 3 grocery stores in New Iberia. But we've been able to develop a line of products that has gotten us outside of just Louisiana, and we are now in all 50 states and Canada.
Woohoo! See, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that entrepreneurial spirit, and I love getting our Louisiana products all over the country. How do you do that?
Oh, we travel constantly.
Okay.
Right? But we're only selling Louisiana rice. I think that's important for you to know.
I care.
Everything that's got our name on it, whether it be CONRICO, whole grain, whatever, is made in New Iberia, Louisiana. Okay, we have no contract packers. That's people from out of the state that make stuff for you. We do it all, right there at our place in New Iberia.
And the rice is all grown here in Louisiana.
It's all
as well?
grown within 50 miles of the mill. How do we get out there and do it? We go to trade shows throughout the United States and Canada. I'm forced to go every year to Puerto Rico. It's just
worse
real.
luck.
Oh, it's punishment. It's just terrible.
I know, it's tough.
Yeah, but we're on. I say we because my wife joins me quite a bit. She kind of helps me in the booth, if you will. But we're probably on somewhere. I know I'm on over 100 flights out of Lafayette a year.
So not only do you keep people in New Iberia employed, you fly Lafayette.
Yes, I do fly Lafayette, as a matter of fact.
Thank you.
Yes.
So it sounds like it's a booming business at this point, but your rice mill itself has been with us for a while.
Yes, ma'am. We are very pleased to say that we're the oldest operating rice mill in the U.S. The CONRADs, there's a guy named P.A. CONRAD, Philip CONRAD. He founded the mill where it's located on Ann Street in New Iberia in February of 1912. So this past February was our birthday, and we were very, very pleased to celebrate it and to be still in business because, as you know, being a little business operation, it's kind of like juggling a bunch of balls at one time, keeping them all in the air. But it's also for us a labor of love. I mean,
It'd have to be. It would have to be to pull it off.
Yeah.
Really.
There's that old wives' tale thing that if you do what you love, you never
work.
You never go to work. That's pretty much the truth for us.
So did you really think when you were growing up that you would be the president and owner of the oldest rice mill in the country?
No, nothing could be could be
Good
much
luck,
further.
huh?
No, my family moved here in 1950 from Fort Scott, Kansas, and my dad was the head track coach at that time. It was called SLI. I was 4 years old, so I grew up literally here and on the SLI, USL, UL campus. There used to be a school called Hamilton Laboratory School.
Yeah.
I went all the way through there, Lafayette High, and then USL. It's where we finished. I finished. And no, that was about as far away from, I never even thought about it.
Who would have thought? And your degree was in?
Marketing, yes. So it's kind of worked out well. Most of the time, you meet a lot of the time, you find people that have a degree, but it's in something that they never use.
Right.
Well, I really do use what I learned in school.
It's a good
And
thing.
yes, but I've also learned that while school helps you go find it, that's what I think I got out of college was how to get to research, get the answers, how to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
But it's an awful lot of on-the-job training.
Well, there's no way that school could have gotten you ready to create rice products.
No, a lot of that has been sheer desperation. How do we keep this thing going?
Yeah.
We started as a white rice mill, and I bought the mill in '75.
Yeah, how did you end up owning a rice mill?
Well, I was looking for something that was a middleman operation. I was raising cattle on the Terrace Road near St. Martinville, Broussard, and it was a piece of property that was owned by Herbert Hyman, and he was my Little League football coach, and he coached hundreds of young men here in town. Really, what a wonderful guy. And I kept looking and looking for something that I could find that would be sort of that middleman agricultural, because I always liked that. and found this mill one day in New Iberia, CONRAD rice mill, and literally drove into the driveway, went in. And
Was there a for sale sign on it?
No. It just was sitting there, kind of empty, and there were two men in the office, a little bitty office. I knocked on the door. One of them was P.A. Conrad, Alan Conrad's son, and the other one was Julian Conrad, and I told them what I was looking for. I'd been looking at this point like 2 years.
Oh, so this was nothing new.
No, I had literally gone. I had been to Guatemala. I had been to down to up into Kansas, looking for any kind of a middleman type position.
You were serious.
Oh no, really serious about it. I got really good at writing business proposals. And anyway, they told me they were thinking about selling, and they had some health issues, and they were ready to get out. And so we shook hands on it, and obviously I didn't have enough money. And I ran home, put a business proposal together, and was able to get a couple people to back me. Herbert Hyman helped me get my share, and I will tell you this, I tell it to anybody, when I thanked him and asked him when I got it all paid back, what could I do for him, he had the best answer anybody's ever told me was, help somebody else.
Yeah.
Now that's quite a man that would say something like that, okay? I had another fella named Claude Brewer from Crowley, and he was a big seed rice guy, and there was a fellow named Donald Harrington also that were helpful. So I had two partners, Harrington and Brewer and myself, and I started, and about 3 years into it, I was able to purchase those two guys. So here we are, and I've been there, and I'm in my 39th year now. So at one time, I was the youngest rice miller in the United States. Now I'm the oldest.
It happens if you just keep doing it.
Yeah, that's right.
If you stay alive and keep doing it, you'll go from the baby to the senior.
Somebody says, when are you going to retire? You know, what's your exit plan? And my exit plan is, why would I quit now? I'm just kind of getting good at this, you know? So as long as the health is good and you still have a desire to do it, I see no reason to not.
As long as you're having fun, huh?
Yes. Well, CONRAD Rice Mill is a very unique little place. We call it a niche rice mill. While we started as a white rice operation, today we only sell white rice to about 15 local stores. And what we mainly sell are our specialty items, if you will. Our Conrico rices, which is our signature product. We make some seasonings because we were making all these rice mixes. We had all the spices, so we started doing that.
That's how that came to be.
That's how it came to be. Yes, ma'am.
Wondered.
But we kind of evolved. I found a company in Chicago, and it was they made a company. It was called Whole Grain, which is the label on these items. HOLGRAIN.
So Whole Grain is another Conrico or CONRAD rice.
That's correct. It's a registered trademark. It's a name. And they made crackers out of brown rice. And, we were interested in that because we were in the rice business. And I bought that company up in Chicago, and I had learned by this time that I could manage one business in one location, but I was not good at multiple locations. I had kind of tried that, and all I did was just drive around putting out fires.
It's not easy.
No, it's not. And some people are really good at that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I see a bunch of multiple grocery store, retail store guys that can do that like it's nothing. I'm not one of those people.
Okay. It's best to know your strengths.
So we did it. We brought this thing from Chicago, Blue Island, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago, and it seemed a simple deal. In fact, we actually closed the deal in the airport in New Orleans, and because it was an interesting product. It didn't taste real good to some people. It was very bland, and sort of like a matzah or a communion wafer. But I really liked it. I thought it had a lot of potential. So when we got through buying the company and bringing it to New Iberia, I had an extra building next to the mill. We had 9 trailer loads of equipment that we brought down. And then we had to put it all together. And it was quite the learning experience. But we got it done because we have some outstanding people working. I got a guy named John Bork who's been with us since he was in high school. And he's got two brothers, Eddie and Joe Victor, who can make and build anything.
You can't do this without a great team.
It's impossible.
You really
absolutely
don't even bother.
No, that's correct. Our office staff, I mean, we got a 2-lady office that covers a company that's selling in all 50 states. And they are incredible. Now, but they're not working 8-hour days either, We're putting in the time it takes to get it done.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how it is in a little company. Everybody has to do everything. All our people are cross-trained. In other words, if we're packing white rice, they can leave that and they can go to making seasonings. They can leave that to go to make crackers.
Well, you know what? Then they're not getting too bored either.
No, and we keep everybody working 12 months out of the year.
And because that's kind of an issue with some of the agribusinesses.
It is.
You know, they're seasonal.
It is. Sugar mills are very seasonal.
Yeah.
And rice mills used to be that way.
I was going to ask that a while back.
No, they used to be that way. You'd get through, you'd mill a crop, it would come in, and then you would put it in big bags, and you would sell it through the year. And so you'd have a crew 3 or 4 months out of the year. Well, we don't have that issue.
Okay, so your people get to have a paycheck every month.
As long as we can keep selling enough product, they got a paycheck coming.
Okay, so I want to know about this whole grain thing, because this is your gluten-free,
Yes,
non-GMO product line. Am I right?
This whole grain has gotten us into an area that, frankly, we really didn't know about 10, 15 years ago. We bought this whole grain company, and we took it, and I was in a natural food show, the largest natural show in the world. It's in Anaheim, California. And I had a retailer, a natural food retailer, come by.
Now, people can't read this. I mean, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want them to know that these are brown rice breadcrumbs,
That's,
y'all.
yes, yeah.
So it's probably hard to read this, but that's
Well,
gluten-free brown rice breadcrumbs.
Yeah, it's a one-of-a-kind kind of thing. And so we started asking people, we had heard about this gluten-free celiac thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And but we didn't know really what it was, but we'd heard about it. And so I asked this retailer, did he have that? And he's looking at my package, he's studying it while I'm doing my little 15-minute spiel, and he puts it down and says, I have a lot of gluten-free people come to my store, and your package doesn't say one thing about that on there. And he was absolutely right. And so I made a note, came back, and we started adding that to our packaging.
So let me ask you.
Yes.
It's good to have it on the packaging, but what makes it gluten-free? I mean, what do you have to do to make that?
The fact that it's made from rice is gluten-free.
Is
naturally
all
gluten-free.
rice products
That's
are
correct.
gluten-free?
That's right.
People like me don't know that.
No, there are certain grains that like corn and spelt and a few things like that. But the primary grain that most people in the United States eat is wheat.
Right.
So what we do is we call it wheat-free, gluten-free.
Okay.
And we are a certified gluten-free operation, the only one in the state of Louisiana.
Okay, so what does that mean?
That means that we are testing every week what we make. And there's a group that comes down from Portland, Oregon, and they're called the Gluten Intolerance Group. And they're very rigid, But they come down and they check on us several times a year, just pop in on us, come in. And we also send all this information just to make sure that we have our gluten levels are so low that they are within the tolerance.
But if it's not occurring in rice
We have no
anyway,
problem
why
at all.
would it even be an issue?
But what can happen is you can have in your operation some wheat or something else that you use for other products.
that gets in there.
And there can be some cross-contamination.
Okay.
We have nothing in our place that does that. So we made a big effort of that. And then the next thing we started working on was we're seeing a lot of genetically modifying of products. Almost all the corn in the United States, virtually all the corn in the United States has been genetically modified.
Isn't that kind of scary?
To me, it's quite scary, all right? The reason people are eating our rice products is because they're gluten-free, and if you're a celiac person, you have to have things that are gluten-free, because what happens is the protein in wheat, if you eat wheat, literally attacks the lining of your stomach, literally. So it's a terrible, you cannot absorb food, you have terrible gastric problems. A celiac child will probably not be as big as his peers are for his age group. But once that's diagnosed, and they have good blood tests now that you can do that with. They didn't used to have that. That's only been in the last few years.
Yeah.
So once you get that done, there's a world of things you can eat.
Oh yeah, it's all over the supermarket now.
So what concerns me, however, is if someone were to genetically modify rice, well, maybe those benefits wouldn't be there any longer. Much of the reason that we're genetically modifying products today is so that it can take a more chemical spray, if you will, and makes it, you can plant soybeans and you can spray them pretty heavy dose, and you don't have to come back in and till it and work the fields, so it's less expensive to make. But there are problems with that. Like, for instance, soybeans, to make them more cold tolerant, they're taking salmon genes and trying to cross them.
As in the fish?
Yes. So, I mean, it's
Wait,
just...
we're crossing
That's correct.
gene fish with soy fish?
They're working very hard on doing that.
Fish gene.
That bothers me. To me, I call it quasi-moto food. You know, it's kind of
Yeah.
like scary stuff. We don't believe in it. Fortunately, the rice industry is very, very good about that. First, we have a big market in Europe. I say we, the rice industry does. And Europe is adamant against genetically modified GMO products. They will not let them in. So that has helped us kind of through a backdoor thing. But so we don't have any problems. The other thing is that rice is closed pollinating. For instance, corn, when it makes the silk stage and it throws the pollen out and the pollen blows across well, it can cross a pasture, it can cross a field, it can cross some distance, and you may have a genetically modified seed that it's all of a sudden now pollinating one that's not.
Yeah.
Rice doesn't do that. It's closed pollinating. It stays within itself. It's within its own plant. So you don't get that cross-contamination. So we're fortunate with that.
It's
Right.
easier to manage.
There's a group called the Non-GMO Project, and we're a member of that. And it's a relatively small group, but we go out of our way not to have anything in the mill that could be possibly genetically modified. We had some corn-based products. We quit making them because we just didn't want to take a chance of having anything like that.
So I guess it's kind of fun to be the president of a small specialty
It's a lot of
rice
fun.
company where you
Yeah.
can put your values into your product, huh?
Well, I signed my name on all these products. Okay, I learned that from the McElhennys. They do the same thing, and they used to tell me, you put your name on a product, it means you're serious about it. And when people write, they write to me. And if you call me at CONRAD Rice Mill and you ask for Mike Davis is going to get on the telephone. Okay, you're not going to go through an automated whatever. I'm going to speak to you. You have time to call me. I have time to talk to you. But what's the fun thing is we get to do stuff like ingredients. If you read our ingredients on any of the things we make, you're going to see that, boy, those are really quite simple, aren't they? I mean, they're very plain and very simple. And we have a little saying that if we can't pronounce it, we don't put it in. Okay. So, all this long scientific, we don't do that. Okay, it's not necessary.
So we're using salt, red pepper, and sugar.
That's correct.
Okay.
We don't do that. And you can make products that can last a long, long time, have long shelf life if you just know what you're doing. For instance, wild pecan rice is in a pouch. That pouch has been flushed with carbon dioxide because that's what plants take in. They take in carbon dioxide and give off oxygen. So by putting it, hermetically sealing it in a CO2 environment, this thing is like canned. It'll be there 20 years from now, 30 years from now.
So what you've done is you've created an environment where the rice can live.
That's correct. And using an inert natural gas to do that. So and we're the only guys that do that.
So who does your science for you, Mike?
Well, this kind of stuff, as far as the ingredients and putting it all together, I do that.
Are you a cook?
Not really, no. Even though I do concoct in my office. My poor employees, they hate that. We're getting ready to come out with a new salt-free, gluten-free Creole seasoning. There's not anything like that on the market. And when they see me coming with a new item, they just start cringing because
they have to taste
they have to taste it. But next to the mill, there's a store my wife runs, Sandy. Sandy and I met in college at USL. And it's funny how, by the way, how I've gotten older and she has. I don't understand how that's happened. It's funny how that worked out. But she runs our little store, and we get about 50,000 people a year coming to visit her because of what she's doing. And we give guided tours, and we have a 20-minute slide presentation about Acadiana. It's really interesting, very historically correct. And we get people there, and while we get them there, we ask them questions like, which of these do you like best? We do our focus studies there. And if we ask the right questions, and we got good people that do, and by the way, if you don't speak English, if you speak French, we have a French-speaking person there as well.
Good, okay.
Oh, but we get a ton of French visitors here, particularly in August.
Yeah.
But the French Canadians come down here, and they really enjoy that. And of course, we get fun with it too.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, yeah.
And but it's also part of the culture. It's part of what we market. It's part of who we are. So it's important that we do that.
I can agree. Yeah.
So anyways, so you do the concocting for the recipes.
Right.
Who does the science like for the pouches? I mean, who would have
That
thought of that? Who knows to do that?
Well, it's just a matter of, once you remember I mentioned when you go to college, you learn how to ask questions. You should. That's one of the things you better learn. When I started making this product, we got with a guy named Professor Joe Don. He is the guy who kind of crossed these varieties. He took some French Indochina rice that was scented or aromatic, crossed it with some domestic varieties. And he was living in Crowley, Louisiana, working at the LSU Experimental Station. A simple phone call to him, I explained to him what my problem was. He's an entomologist, and this guy has forgotten more than most people would ever know. But anyway, when I talked to him at the time, and he mentioned, well, you could put that, if you had a CO2 environment, you could keep it fresh as first day ever. So then we went to our packaging people, and we started asking those guys, resources, how do you do that? And we ended up, if you will, kind of emulating the coffee people. You ever you buy a pound of coffee and you notice how it's hard?
Yeah.
Well, once you open it, it gets soft.
Right.
Well, that's the same principle. They're flushing it with nitrogen. We're using carbon dioxide because we think it goes better with the grains.
Okay.
But it's exactly the same thing. You remove the oxygen. Remember, oxygen is the enemy of all food products. You open a bottle of wine, and if you leave it out, if you don't drink it all and you leave it out, it gets vinegary. It's because of oxidation. So oxygen is a real problem. So you can get rid of it, you can do it. And we flush this with oxygen by CO2 by dropping it down inside this package. CO2 is heavier than oxygen. So the oxygen comes out the top, and then you seal it hermetically. And it takes a special film. So we had to go out and find somebody who could give us the film. You would think all plastic would be non-permeable, but it's not.
Okay.
Gases can migrate through it unless you put barriers in there. So you have to do all that. And so you just learn a lot of that. I mean, once again, I'm telling you, I'm in my 39th year. If I can't figure out some of this by now, shame on me.
Well, you figured out a lot of it already.
Well, we're learning. It's a learning process.
So you have a new seasoning coming out. So
We do.
When you launch a new product, do you do like a PR thing? Do you do a meet our newest?
We do. We sell specialty natural food distributors. That's our channel of distribution. In other words, like a Safeway or an A&P, we do not go directly to them. We go through a distributor. Wow. So the first thing we do is we go to the distributor and we say, we got this brand new product. Boy, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. You just got to have it. Of course, they only hear that 1,000 times a day, right?
They roll their eyes.
Yeah, that's right. So what they basically say, you bring me a customer and I'll put it in. Well, I have done this long enough now that we have some people that trust us, and we tell them we have a good product, they'll give us a shot. Okay. So that helps us get into it. So once we get in the warehouse and we get the distribution, inside, we get item numbers and all this kind of bureaucratic stuff you got to do. We then start going to trade shows. Okay.
Trade shows are a big deal, aren't they?
They're a huge deal. They're huge. And I mean, there is a trade show for everything. I'm sure there's trade shows for TV cameras and for, you name it. If it's being sold in the United States, there's a trade show, an association. And we go to these, and we go to lots of them. I mean, we're going to 1 or 2 a month. And we have a booth, and we sample the products, and we tell our story, and we talk about it. We go to gluten-free consumer shows, because everything we make now, all of our rice, everything we make is gluten-free. It's certified gluten-free. It's a big deal, it's certified thing. Okay. So we've been going to like 4 or 5. We're going to go to 8 this next year. There's a great big one down in West Palm Beach, Florida. And they'll advertise it for months. And so all the people who have celiac disease will come in there. And we will be having our products out. We have little samples that we make up, and we taste them and hand them out. And I mean, it's like guerrilla marketing, if you will. We're right down there, doing it out there. And interestingly, now we're selling a lot of these things not just to people with celiac sprue disease, but there's some new definitions of them. People who have what they call a wheat intolerance. And there's a school of thought, which I contribute to that, I believe in that, is that the wheat that my grandparents used to eat has now been crossed, and not genetically, but just through hybridizing to get more yield per acre, and it just stands up better, it harvests better. So what's happened is the same thing as the proteins now are much stronger, those wheat proteins, than they used to be. So people who never had any kind of a wheat intolerance, all of a sudden now are developing this.
So for those that have trouble with wheat, dry rice.
Yes.
We're really out of time, but in the last second, your products are available throughout Acadiana, I'm
All of
pretty
Acadiana, they sure are.
And if anybody wants to kind of come by and check out the mill, they can do it, huh?
Monday through Saturday, we're open for you.
Okay, Mike, thank you so much for being and sharing
Thank you, ma'am.
your story. It's a great story. I love it. I never would have imagined that.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
That a city boy would have a rice mill. How cool is that?
I'll tell you what, and if it weren't for the people of South Louisiana, we wouldn't be here anymore.
That's totally true for you and me both. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Mike. And thank you for watching The Extra Mile.